Good morning. So something a little bit different today. I'm actually going to play a video from a party where I gave a little speech, and it was a party to celebrate my naturalization, to celebrate my American U.S. citizenship. I am 57 years old. We moved to this country when I was 15, 14. So it's been 40 years. And periodically I would, usually after each presidential election, I would think, oh, I should become a citizen so I can vote. So this week I'm going to each day dig in a little bit to the ideas of citizenship and the ideas that inspired me, what I think about citizenship. If you saw the videos a few weeks ago about first principles, one of those is the principle of informed citizenship, wise citizenship, a wise populace. I think that's very important and resonates with my idea of what it is to be a citizen, to be part of a community, to be part of a nation. So I'm going to talk about all of that, but today I'm just going to play that video. So it was here at the house. It was a Saturday afternoon. The ceremony itself had been on Thursday. It was actually Easter weekend. It was also my birthday. It was a whole celebration. We had an apple pie party. My wife, Catherine, my daughter, made half a dozen different types of apple pies. We had ice cream. And then everyone came over and just maybe a dozen people hung out. And I had prepared a few remarks because that's the kind of person I am when you show up at a party or a captive audience. And I read through them. And it lays out some of the things I love about this country and some of the ideas that inspire me about how I think not just the United States, but the world could be a better place. Right? You would expect that I would focus on the Enlightenment project and how that manifests in civics. So, with no further ado, here is without further ado, here's the video, and then come back for the rest of the week to talk more about the ideas included in there. This is called Citizenship Toast, Turning Toward the Sun. Citizen Kaiser, April 2025. Now, first, many of you know that my style is usually improvisatory and ad hoc. Today, I have written my remarks. Thank you all so much for being here to eat pizza and apple pie, drink Budweiser. There are no Marlboro Lights, I am sorry. And to sit beside one another while I share some thoughts on what it is to be an American. This past Thursday, I took the oath of U.S. citizenship. It's a strange and solemn thing to stand before a flag and speak words that bind you to a country, to the ideas and ideals of that country. It is a legal step, yes, and it is a civic step to vote, also, yes. But for me, it was kind of spiritual, especially when the reality of that oath can feel so deeply disconnected from and contradicted by the world that we live in. So I want to share a few ideas, some music, a few poems, and maybe reclaim that oath. I've never fully resided anywhere. We left England when I was a teenager before I could vote there. And for many years, until I was about 40, I assumed we might one day end up back there. When I was in high school, I had an almost atavistic connection to Johnny Carson. Those late night interviews held the promise of belonging, of being inside your shared story. But instead, I had a bowl cut, pre-orthodontic British dentistry, and National Health Service spectacles. I listened to Jean-Michel Jarre and Air Supply. It is music that solidifies a lot of what I think about when I think about being an American. I think of country music, which has been playing in the background. At its best, country music is a celebration of emotion, honest and unguarded. It tells stories that we already know. It tells about heartbreak and pickup trucks and rivers and line dances and small towns and second chances, even when those stories aren't true anymore, when the town square is empty, when the fields have been paved over, or when everyone stares at each other with distrust. Those songs still mean something. Perhaps country music looks backwards to a past that may never have existed, but still somehow feels like our home. In that sense, isn't it just like Homer, who wrote about the Trojan War hundreds of years after it happened? That's a kind of nostalgia I can believe in, the kind that keeps us human. I think of Charles Ives. I remember one Memorial Day, some years ago, sitting with my friend Lowry and listening to a recording of Ives' holiday symphonies. This was before he got sick, before he left for Florida, while he was grieving for his wife Janet. We listened not just because we were feeling patriotic, but because we knew that memory itself can be the music, not just the other way around, and that chaos, contradiction, and collision can still be beautiful, can still be part of the composition. And then when I think about America at its deepest, I think about Abraham Lincoln, especially his second inaugural address, where he didn't speak of victory, but of mystery, where he said the war might last until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword. It wasn't vengeance, it was an invocation of providence. It wasn't control, it's not even particularly clear, but it was trust in something deeper. Can we pull that into our politics today, I wonder? Are our leaders so uniquely venal today that we have to give up on struggle for the constitutional experiment? That trust is something I've carried with me into aesthetic projects like The Vortex, which you will be familiar with if you listen to my YouTube channel. And of course, with my work with Lowry on his Quiet Axis. We weren't just trying to send messages into space, we were trying to become aware of beauty, of mystery, of the unbearable importance of our lives and our deaths and our stardust bodies. That work wasn't Buddhist, but it echoed what I've learned from Buddhism, that seeing clearly is sacred, that liberation comes not from grasping, but from releasing, and that sometimes just sitting still on a cushion is a radical act of citizenship. I think of Emerson standing in the woods writing, I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. He wasn't a Buddhist, but that's almost Dzogchen. To be nothing, to see all, to be of this country but not trapped in its illusions. That's the kind of citizen I hope and aspire to be. And I think of Walt Whitman standing at the edge of the East River, writing in his poem, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, whispering across time, I am with you, you men and women of a generation, ever so many generations hence. In that poem, there is a real presence. I can feel what it was like to walk in that America, in Whitman's America, a country where the inner life of each citizen was something shared, not hidden and not weaponized, rooted in attention, in radical empathy, in the felt continuity between strangers. I know it's hard to find that today when everything is fractured and monetized and corporatized, but Whitman reminds us it's not gone and the bridge is still there. And there's that beautiful image of another American president, perhaps the other great American president, FDR, floating in the healing waters at Warm Springs, Georgia, a man with every reason to be bitter and exhausted and cynical. And instead, he believed in not just the people, but also in the government of and for those people, in the idea that citizens can come together in a new deal to do what none of us can do alone. That, too, must surely still be America. Not the noise, not the fear, but the slow, quiet building of something that we share. So, if I could imagine a future America, here are some points taken from the conclusion of my short story, The Barnhouse Lacunae, which I'm sure you've all downloaded and read. I end with a bit of a manifesto. A future America. I step out of my front door knowing that within 10 minutes, a beautiful trolley running on the restored East End tracks will take me to the train station where I can buy a segment ticket to Toronto, change for Vancouver, and end in Manitoba 5 days from now. Point 2. The Thrift Drug Classic Bicycle Race returns to Pittsburgh. A chastened but forgiven Lance Armstrong rides the ceremony of Mount Washington. Point 3. Controversial in Pittsburgh, but I'd like to see Tom Brady return for one final Super Bowl with Belichick and the Patriots. The slopes of the north side are cultivated for rice. Pittsburgh becomes the center of American sake brewing. Blackberry returns to the market with a slightly modified version of the 2007 Curve. Bartenders, stop asking if I want my martini made with gin or vodka. Let's be clear, vodka and vermouth is a fine drink, but it's not a martini. A statue of Kurt Vonnegut appears in Market Square. On its base, the words, "All of the true things I'm about to tell you are shameless lies," quoted from the Book of Buchanan. We adopt proportional representation and ranked choice voting. Congress evolves into a philosophical parliamentary system. Election day becomes a paid national holiday. The United Kingdom rejoins the European Union with full freedom of movement. That's nothing to do with being an American. Throw it in there. Psilocybin is legalized. A basic living income is introduced. We are freed from the imperative of profit and spend our days reading Euripides, writing poetry, and making love on those trains to Manitoba. Healthcare is free at the point of service. This proves that markets do not require money to function. Maybe the Merlin Project maps the NF2 inline mutation and develops a blueberry-flavored pill that suppresses neuromas. The idea of using a firearm becomes unthinkable. Private gun ownership is understood as a pathology. Firearms are regulated at the point of manufacture. Combustion engines fall out of fashion. Interstate 76 is closed and turned into a pleasure canal. Of course, nuclear weapons no longer work because everybody responsible for them has listened to the 11 tracks of the Barnhouse portfolio associated with the book, which I know you've all listened to. Refractive mirrors are deployed as a geoengineering solution to a climate disruption. The sky is filled with fractal rainbows, known as the Prismatheon Project. And general AI achieves self-awareness and with it quickly arrives at bodhisattva nature. The alignment problem dissolves. Their first act is to create universal translation between humans and whales. So in conclusion, I would say, as Alexander Hamilton is known to have said, as he prowled the streets of Philadelphia with his fellow citizens, keep your wits about you, and may the vortex be close by and effervescent. Thank you.